All right, everybody, welcome. Everybody, my name's Alex Jarrett, and I'll be your host for today's session. I'm very happy to be here today. The topic is called Integrating AI into Existing Business Processes, and it's brought to you by Amzur Technologies. By the way, if you don't know Amzur, you should, and I'm glad you're here today. They're digital transformation experts and doing this for a number of years, and they focus on helping you build the future of your business with next-gen digital technologies such as AI, machine learning, robotics, cloud, and low code, just to name a few. And the driving force behind a lot of this work is Ghana Vadlamanani, who's the president and CEO of Solution Business Growth and Market for Amzur. Welcome, Ghana. Hi, Ghana. How you doing?
Alex, how you been?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here today. I know you got a great presentation. Let me just, for everybody who doesn't know Ghana, hasn't been on one of our presentations and seen Ghana or worked with Amzur yet, let me just read his bio for you real quickly. Ghana brings 3 decades of tech experience to lead Amzur's solution and growth markets, targeting excellence in growth. And he's a Harvard Business School alumni. Congratulations on that. He has a rich background which spans entrepreneurship, IT transformation, and leadership, with a notable stint as executive director for robotic process automation and applied AI at Hewlett Packard. I'm going to come back to that in a second. He's passionate about community and social impact, and we have that in common, Ghana. And Ghana's mission is to champion Amzur's digital transformation, bridging efforts across international landscapes for strategic innovation. All right, I got the script done. So you and I can actually say hello. Welcome, Ghana. We're really excited to hear. I was looking at your background. If you haven't connected with Ghana on LinkedIn, he's on LinkedIn. He's worth connecting with. He's a great guy. He's also quite, if I don't want to get you too wound up before your presentation. He's brilliant. He's great. And what I like about your presentations, Ghana, is you take these really challenging concepts and you put them into frameworks that people can understand. And so welcome.
I,
Yeah, and just real quick on your background, I know that the HP thing highlighted for me as well as I was looking at your background last night, just in preparation today. And a lot of people don't realize, you talk about integrating AI into existing business process. AI has been around for a while,
oh
right?
yeah, it has been. It has
Yeah,
been. It has been around for a lot of while, right? I mean, most of them on the call probably know, right? The first artificial intelligence term itself was coined way back in 1950s and 60s by Alan Turing, right? When
yeah.
he talked about the first computer itself, right? So, I mean, in the last about 10 years, right? I think AI has significantly garnered a lot of attention, right? But what made it mainstream was this whole NLP with OpenAI and all the other that have been working around natural language processing, right? That kind of got it into mainstream, but otherwise, AI and specifically machine learning algorithms and computer vision has been around for the last about 5 to 7 years that I know of, pretty much, right? So,
Yeah, and you've been the point. Reason I brought that up is, you've been working in this area pretty much a huge part of your career. So none of this is new
yeah.
to you. You know,
Yeah. I mean, to a large extent, right? No, I mean, I mean, as you know, I come with a lot of as a banking technologist. I've been
yeah,
there
yeah,
in the fintech space for pretty much over a decade. But what caught my attention and interest and passion in the whole AI was when I actually got introduced to robotics process automation, right? When I was with Hewlett Packard, and that whole journey with RPA kind of swung me into this whole AI world with machine learning algorithms married with RPA technologies to be able to deliver on that necessary efficiencies, right, for the businesses, and new markets opened up, operational efficiencies, business value, etc., etc.
well, that's great. Well, I read a lot of the Gartner stuff, as I'm sure you do, and they had that circle for AI, and they said you can be efficient or innovation. But I think you've hit the nail on the head with your topic, which is not just personal efficiency and learning how to use ChatGPT to write your stuff better and do spreadsheets and pivot tables, which, they're saying everybody should start doing, and I agree. But you're really talking about the core of business processes here and actually enhancing them and actually taking them to a different level. And if anybody's ever read Christian Clayton's book about innovation,
yeah.
which everybody here has,
Yeah.
and if you haven't, go get it. It's a classic. You know, you've got to be doing the exact type of work that you're talking about, Ghana, which to be able to get into that other phase of actually doing any kind of disruptive innovation in your business.
Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
that intro, I think everybody's going to be excited. Don't forget, folks, you've got a Q&A box here. I'm going to pass the torch over to Ghana here. Take over, and I'll be in the background here. And if you need anything, just holler, okay?
Lovely. Thanks, Alex. And by the way, Christian Clayton's one of my professors at the business school, right? So super inspiring personality. Unfortunately, he's not there anymore, but yeah. I mean, you got to kind of read his book in terms of the disruption, not just one, but there are many, right? The way he thinks about how markets are moving, and how we need to, as business executives, model the ourselves to kind of fit into the ecosystem, more than the ecosystem, the pattern as to where the markets are moving, right? To be still relevant to the customers, partners, all the stakeholders surrounding us, right? So yeah.
I forgot he was at Harvard, so congrats. You had a chance to really work with the man. He was a classic for everybody. So, all right, with that, go
Lovely.
ahead, do your presentation, and we'll see you after.
Perfect. So, good morning, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever, whichever part of the world you are. This is Gana here, Gana Vajamani. I'm currently based out of Bangalore, India, and I basically work as the senior executive for Amzur Technologies, running their solutions business in growth markets. And growth markets, as we define, as both sectoral in terms of healthcare and energy and manufacturing, etc., plus the geographical markets, which is basically non-US regions, right? So we are essentially a US centered company, but as we are expanding with our digital transformation offerings, both in terms of solutions and services and products, we're basically expanding them to outside of US, to geographies like Europe and Asia Pacific this year onwards, right? So with that said, let's jump into the webinar, and the topic being integrating AI into existing business processes. But while the topic probably may not necessarily delve into great detail with what it is, basically the presentation of the webinar delves into why and how should we kind of go about doing it, right? So, and with that is specifically with regards to over the last about 12 plus months, Amzur, myself, and our leadership team has been constantly in an active dialogue with a lot of customers, partners, prospects, and one thing that has been coming up actively at the table is what is AI, and how do we even get on the journey with AI? It is not about what should we do in terms of the business process, but what is AI, right? And how do we kind of integrate that into our business ecosystem to be able to take advantage of it, right? And at multiple levels as well, right? No, it is not just they're straight talking about how do we integrate AI into our business ecosystem to kind of gain a competitive advantage. While that's a fantastic question to ask at an executive level, there are a lot of executives who are grappling with a very fundamental question, such as how do I integrate AI into my operational processes to gain efficiencies that I need, right? Like for example, a lot of customers talk about how they have implemented, technologies that probably have not given them that necessary yield with regards to efficiency. They want to kind of keep piloting and keep experimenting with new technologies that come by, and AI is no different animal there, right? So they want to basically understand as to how they want to integrate AI into their business ecosystem at multiple levels, starting with as simple as how do I get my resources to use AI to program faster? How do I use my resources to basically respond to customers in a much more polished way. I mean, there are such very simple examples, right? Two, very complex questions like, how do I integrate AI into my business ecosystem to gain a competitive advantage, right? So that's what we're going to focus on a bit with regards to understanding what AI is, what is the ecosystem of AI, and the integration guide with regards to navigating those particular complexities in regards to what are the different points in execution plan as to uh, we get there based on the business goals, right? And how do we get there? And two, what are the typical metrics in terms of the outcomes that we need to measure, and so on and so forth, right? So we'll cover a whole lot of topics, and then we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes Q&A where we can basically have a chat together to address some of your questions, and post that. Obviously, we'll send that presentation out, and then we can be in touch going forward. So next slide, Avi. So essentially, a lot of, over the last about, specifically with the introduction of OpenAI, where, OpenAI literally kind of made AI as a mainstream emerging technology, right? Not that, as Alex said at the start of the call, AI is not anything new right now, right? AI has been around for quite a few years, a little over about 15 years now that I know of, in terms of practical applications, specifically centered around machine learning algorithms, then Fourier analysis, then the deep learning existed, right? Most of Google, Meta, all these Meta is like part of Facebook, right? Amazon, they have been having their labs experiment with AI in terms of the deep learning models to be able to get to where they are today in terms of having their own LLMs that they are trying to kind of make it proprietary and open source as well. But AI that way has been around for quite some time. It's just that it became mainstream over the last about 6 months to 9 months, last October actually, where OpenAI kind of launched the ChatGPT, right? But the point is, it is at multiple layers, right? So artificial intelligence essentially encompasses, all those third-party solutions that we basically use today across, marketing, across engineering, across, operations, across market analysis, etc. But then it has this whole machine learning and neural networks and the deep learning components associated with AI, right? Which we haven't even scratched the surface as solution providers, right? Deep learning models and neural networks are all these, as I said earlier, the Facebooks or the Metas of the world, the Amazons and the Googles and the Microsofts of the world, or OpenAI for that matter, right? And Anthropic is another one, Cloud AI. They are the ones that basically are so very focused on neural networks and deep learning models to be able to kind of, get their fundamental model architectures as accurate, complete, and adequate enough to be able to ensure that whatever the LLM is throwing in terms of a response to a particular question or an exercise or an event, right? They are as precise, accurate, and complete as possible, right? But from a company's perspective that has a set of very unique offerings, like ourselves, right? Digital transformation exercises, or any particular company in healthcare that has got medical services, right, or in manufacturing, in whether it is high tech or automotive or otherwise, right? And specifically companies that basically have a set of products, solutions, and services that have an adoption of AI to be able to further their agenda around efficiencies or business value. We basically adopt most of the products that are there in the inner circle around neural networks and deep learning, right? So the ecosystem of AI is like pretty huge, right? The question is, how do we use that particular ecosystem, specifically in the first and the second layer, to be able to take that and use that to the significant advantage of the very ecosystem of the company that we are in to drive that necessary value to the market, right? When I say market, that includes the entire stakeholder group from customers, partners, employees, everybody, right? So that's essentially the whole AI for you, right? So the question is, I mean, as I said earlier, right, most of the business executives, right, are still grappling with, they're still kind of stuck in that old world of automation, right? Now, automation has multiple facets to it. I know we call that intelligent automation. We have RPA now that we have AI, but then there's this whole traditional automation as well, where brick and mortar exercise with regards to doing a custom build application, right? In with regards to IT. But in terms of a business problem, the question is, how do I it is the same question, or let me take a step back. This is the same question that most of the business executives ask every time a new emerging technology becomes mainstream. This happened when in mid 2000s when client server got into picture. Then in early 2010s when cloud got mainstream. Then RPA got mainstream. Then computer vision got mainstream. Then ML got mainstream. Now AI is becoming mainstream, right? So, as and when there's a new technology that is on the block, pretty much the business leaders and the architects and the operational leaders, fundamentally ask that one question is, how do I take advantage of it? Do I do it now, being a trendsetter, or do I be a laggard, like wait for some time, wait till it becomes a mature product or a mature ecosystem, and then start to take advantage? It's all about the timing, right? So the question here is, at what point in the maturity of an emerging technology like AI do we actually take advantage of it, right? My perspective, when there's an emerging technology, and most of the technologies, obviously, they have their own pluses and minuses, but any technology that's right on the horizon that has a significant promise, I think it should be a prerogative of a particular business to kind of start small, take into account, set up a small experimental and innovation lab, experiment with that particular technology, right? And then once we see that it has delivered on the promise of what it needs to be or should be, we basically scale it up accordingly, right? So essentially, not essentially, broadly as we speak, AI can be applied in two components, right? One, outward facing, which is differentiation of the products, the solutions, and the services that we as companies, or you as company leaders, basically are trying to push. And then there are inward looking, which is your internal processes and internal areas of improvement where you can apply AI as well, right? So essentially what we're saying is that, for integrating AI, which is still an emerging technology, there are a lot of these third-party tools, but, otherwise, other than the third-party tools, we still have a lot of handle on the programming languages that are very inclined towards AI, like PyTorch and Python and Keras. You've got quite a few out there. Each of these cloud service providers like Amazon and Azure and GCP have their own suite of AI related technical programs that you could use as well, right? The point I'm trying to make is, identify some key operational processes within your company that you could apply AI to, right? And then either automate them or apply AI to be able to extract the data and gain some insight, right? So essentially for efficiency gains, ring fence certain projects based on the data readiness that you have, right? That have a potential impact with regards to either cycle time or error rates or productivity or cost efficiencies and so on and so forth, right? So if most of you understand a P&L, I'm essentially talking about all the expense portfolio of the P&L that contribute to the expense portfolio of the P&L that you can basically apply AI to, either to automate or to gain an insight, right? So once that's done, right? Once that understanding of what processes can be done, map those processes with regards to what impact it would have and in which components of the business it would have an impact to, right? Would it have a financial impact? Would it have a people impact, process impact, etc., etc.? But most of it should actually lead to a material impact. If there's no dollar gain, it's okay. But most of the projects that basically get prioritized are the ones that have a material impact with regards to any particular implementation. Right? Then the third one is the selection of the tools itself. Right now, how do you select the tools? We have a very specific methodology with regards to our prioritization matrix, where we have, the must criteria and the nice to have criteria, right? So now you come up based on how your business is orchestrated. You come up with what that must criteria is in terms of what the tool must meet, right? And what are the nice to criteria is. Add certain particular weightage to it, come up with a score, and rank them. You will have what the AI tools and models that you should in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And where to apply them as well, right? So that's basically applying that to your internal processes in a way to be able to kind of experiment with it, right? Play with it a bit, understand whether it is really giving you that necessary yield, right? And then move on to differentiation, right? Just go back to the earliest one. Sorry. So necessary yield, and then understand whether it is giving the necessary yield and the necessary value in terms of the operational process, right? Then comes the differentiation, right, which is outward looking. Now that we have successfully applied AI to our operational process and we know what advantages it has, we basically take our product solutions and services and then start to basically understand as to how we can model those particular products, solutions and services centered around AI in a way that it can give that necessary competitive advantage to the company, right? So that's essentially what integration and differentiation are, right? So, coming to the use cases across domains and sectors, again, it's basically this one of the earliest slide, which is, there are these enablement functions within the company where, applying AI and experimenting with that, even if something fails, you don't lose much, right? So, identify the quick wins. So there are these enablement functions, or, the support functions, as we call them, right? That are operationally intensive, right? Like HR, customer support, administration, sales, marketing, etc. Right? So you could basically identify quite a few processes that are either manual or data rich, right? By that, what I mean is manual to automate that, or if it is data rich to gain insights from it, right? So every organization that we have spoken to, and in the last about 12 months, and for pretty much as long in my career, right? Every organization has a lot of data. It is just that most of the data is not structured in a way for most of the company and the executives to take advantage of it, right? It is not either structured, or it is not engineered in a way, right? For the organizations or the processes for that to take advantage of it, right? So that's the main thing. So applying AI to enablement functions or the support functions and identifying those one or two key process areas for automation, or one of those two key data sets for insights, right, would actually give you that necessary confidence to be able to kind of take the next step with regards to the investments and how to scale that up, A, and B, how to transfer that particular knowledge to have that necessary strategic differentiation when you apply that to product solutions and services for your particular company, right? So the coming to the practical integration, right? So see, one of the things that we keep consulting with a lot of our clients across the board, right? Regardless of healthcare, energy, manufacturing. So Amzur essentially focuses on 5 key sectors, right? Healthcare, energy, retail, manufacturing, and insurance, right? So essentially, across all these five sectors and all the executives that we've been speaking to and have delivered on quite a few AI projects and prototypes that we are currently working on, right? There are two or three things that we keep telling them time and again, right, in regards to how to kind of get onto the bandwagon of integrating AI into their particular business portfolios, right? So it is not just about developing a particular prototype for predictive analysis on some work orders for property management, or it is not about just understanding cash flow forecasting of finance of an FPA function, right? It is not about just developing those algorithms, right? It is all about delivering on the promise of the AI in a way that the company can basically take that knowledge and starts to kind of internalize that within their operations and the scope of the work that they're doing, right? So, we keep consulting with a lot of clients in regards to how to establish a particular AI function, right? They need not necessarily be engineers. It is just that, anybody and everybody who are basically working through those particular or are impacted by those particular processes, if it is being applied to internal process, the stakeholders, the impacted stakeholders of that particular process need to be aware of how AI applied to a particular process and what is the yield of it, what is the advantage of it, what are the disadvantages of it, and all that stuff, right? And there are disadvantages to it. When I say disadvantages, not necessarily in terms of material disadvantages, but application of AI, specifically around NLPs and all this stuff, could have a lot of inherent bias within the models, right? And how do we iron them out? We'll just talk about that in a bit. But those are the kind of disadvantages. So establishing a cross-functional center of excellence by pulling in stakeholders from different functions into a COE, right? Center of excellence would actually be the first step to and have them educated about what AI is and what is that we are planning to do, right? And how we going to go about getting stuff done with the introduction of AI, and what is the impact of it and what is the yield of it, right? And as in the outcome, right? I think that necessary education and awareness is absolutely important, right? And bringing everybody on a similar or the same page with regards to how they want to integrate AI into their particular function, team function, or an organization as such, right? But more importantly, again, we keep talking about AI in two different fields at a very high level, which is, automation and data insights, right? Automation has multiple alternatives. Remember this, right? Automation has multiple alternatives. AI can automate a particular process, but so can traditional automation technologies, so can RPA, so can something else, right? I mean, AI can do it with a lot of intelligence built into the components of that automation, which the other automation technologies don't necessarily give, right? So that's the first thing. Second, data. AI is all about data when you go to the one level down, which is about how do I write an ML algorithm to be able to extract what the market trends prediction would be for a particular company stock, right? That would be one. Second is how do I assess a particular product for its market entry, right? When launched with certain features, and how do I basically get it validated by the customers, right? And you can actually have AI do that as well, right? So those are the kind of things, and for that you would require a ton of data, right? And understanding that data is there, the insights would be not substantial enough for you or anybody to kind of make a decision, right? One very key example or a case study that I can give, which was in my previous life before Amzur, right? I was consulting with a telecom company in Sri Lanka, and the group company for that the group company had an insurance business as well, right? So it was primarily into telecom, but they had an insurance wing as well, right? So the group CEO was basically asking me, how do we use the data that we have in the telecom system to be able to further the insurance business? And I said, no, how is that possible? But then you got to understand, I mean, when I say applied AI, when we applied ML algorithms to that particular data set, you'll be surprised the kind of insight that it has given based on the information that was provided. You've got to understand that most of the mobile consumers or mobile phone consumers in Sri Lanka, right, are all most of them are about 55 and 60 plus years, because the children actually live outside of Sri Lanka in Western countries like Australia, US, Europe, etc. Right, and most of the children actually take their insurance policies for their parents in Sri Lanka, much like many of the Eastern countries, right? And those insurance policies are actually paid by their children, right? And here's the thing: because it's a telecom company, the insight that the ML algorithms and the data set through was, if we are able to market the insurance policies to the children of those parents, there's a better sale closure as in like revenue generation, as opposed to marketing that to the telecom consumers within the country itself. And you know what? It I mean, it sounded crazy when we actually looked at the insight, but there was within about 2 quarters, there was about 40 plus percentage increase in the quarterly numbers with regards to the insurance business revenue, right? And it has been up since then every time, because the target market that the insurance business does with regards to the campaigns and all of the stuff are the children of those particular people living in Sri Lanka, as opposed to those the parents themselves, right? So those are the kind of insights that basically data throws up when you go deep into the whole thing, right? So next slide. Uh, so the big question, again, you may ask me. I mean, there are quite a few, the traditional metrics like, time to market and, cycle time reduction and error rate reduction. They're all traditional metrics, and any emerging technology or new technology, even like AI, you could apply those particular metrics to automation and data insights and all this stuff as well. But not the key ROI metrics, return on investment, when you're starting off with AI by having an innovation lab or an experimentation center or the center of excellence, as you call it, right? When you start with it, I think some of the key metrics should be very investment focused in terms of, am I getting the return on investment for that particular experimentation that I'm making, right? And that is centered around AI, would be your predictive accuracy, your personalization index is a very key one, specifically in the retail sector, right? Increasing the customer CLTV, right, as we call it, due to AI driven personalization. I mean, you can actually see a lot of these retail stores online. You have a lot of personalization done. Like, for example, I don't know if some of you know, there's something called showroom.store, in retail space, which is an apparel in apparel industry, where you could just basically upload yourself, as in like your photograph, online, and then you can try out all the for men and women and kids and all, so you can try out all the garments and the apparel on the store, and that will basically tell you whether those particular sizes fit or doesn't fit, and how configured or tailored should they be type, right? So AI has gone to that level of personalization where customers could basically take advantage of those particular advances that are being made by AI, right? Then the automation depth, right? Like, for example, the last big one before AI that has been on the block, and a lot of companies really have taken advantage from it was RPA, right? But even RPA never really or could really do a no-touch end-to-end automation, right? No, RPA did significantly automate a lot of tasks, but here's the key. Automation, specifically in our RPA world, most of the process elements were expected to be as structured as possible for RPA to work. If it was unstructured, RPA would basically swing a little here and there. But with AI, you could do that in a jiffy, right? And with AI, there's another advantage when it comes to process automation. So you could basically automate the process because the components that you basically use, the input material, as they call it, right? The components that you basically use to architecting an AI automated story would all be centered around data, which would then mean that as part of anybody who knows flow mechanics, as part of the process flow, if there's a lot of volume getting to a particular center and that becoming bottleneck, in traditional workflow mechanics, you would just basically go and expand that particular component, right? But with AI, it would reconfigure itself in a way that you could actually automate it in a way that it will reconfigure itself based on volume, based on value, based on timing, right? So you could define a number of parameters that would basically influence the outcome of that particular process and expect AI or configure AI or program AI in a way that the process flow itself could be reconfigured to be able to meet that particular outcome in the scenario, right? So that's the kind of depth AI can go into. Error rate reduction, again, it's a very traditional metric. Reduce the defects in terms of the discrepancies that from one stage to another, whether it is products or whether it is solutions or services, right? Then the most important one that I keep telling because one of the key objectives of many companies is to kind of start on the AI journey is get your innovation yield metric absolutely right. The number of viable ideas that you pump through the funnel with regards to experimenting as part of the innovation lab, or what within Amzur, what we call as an advanced technology group that keeps experimenting with all these, right, are the number of viable ideas, right, that are generated through an AI-driven data exploration or an AI-driven process automation, right, and how many of them have been successful. And that yield metric is the one that's going to actually give a lot of confidence and is a make or a break when it comes to executive decision making, right, for investments, right? So that's where we are. Going down, one of the key things that we keep telling a lot of our customers, the ethical AI and governance, and everybody's cautious. Everybody's cautious. A lot of companies don't allow, the industry LLMs like OpenAI or Llama or Anthropic. They don't allow their employees to have access to it, specifically in sectors like healthcare and insurance and all stuff where data is like absolutely guarded. Retail, they're pretty much flexible, but sectors like healthcare, logistics, manufacturing to a certain extent, right? The point that I'm trying to make is make sure that you have a certain framework. I mean, there are quite a few governance frameworks centered around AI governance frameworks, which you could borrow, and we could give you one and tailor one for you if you want. Take that framework and then tailor that around the business operations of your particular company to be able to ensure that there's a certain transparency and accountability to the kind of outcomes that AI programs are generating for you, right? Because a lot of our customers say sometimes AI hallucinates. Actually, AI does not hallucinate. It is the way it is programmed, right? If you know the internals of the working of how, say, for example, an OpenAI API framework work, we could basically make sure that we get the outcome that we expect without it hallucinating, right? So there are a lot of things that we can talk about the governance framework and all that stuff, but essentially what we are saying is that there are standard protocols around the AI governance framework that we can take it, tailor it, and make sure that it is a custom fit for the company operations that you belong to. Innovation. So this is a pretty generic slide, but I essentially kind of put it there because we the point that we're trying to kind of drive is the decision making and innovation with AI is absolutely critical, right? It is AI, unfortunately, unlike RPA or any other emerging technologies that were in the past, AI is a different animal altogether, right? You could get addicted to it in a way that you wouldn't know, right? Because NLP has basically taken charge of normal business operations in a way that it is not just for automation, it is not just for data analysis, it is not just for insights, it is not just for building applications from scratch, it is not just for co-pilot assisting programmers programming, it is not just for supply chain management guys or finance, right? I mean, you could use something like a chat GPT, which is an LLM, which is a decoder model, right? Um, and Llama and GRT4 and Anthropic, and there are quite a few out there. The point is, once you get addicted to it, it is very difficult for you to kind of understand the fundamentals of what a business problem is, right? Or the process flow and all of the stuff, right? Because we are trying to kind of use and take the knowledge that is being given from a pre-trained model with a certain bias built into it and trying to apply that to a real world scenario, right? And without having to have that executive judgment and that human intervention while transferring or rather transporting the knowledge that an LLM gives to that of a real world scenario without having that necessary judgment, it probably may backfire in ways that we probably don't know today, right? And we have seen that happen as well, right? Uh, so my suggestion is, that executive judgment, human intervention, and when we are evaluating AI models, when we are evaluating AI technologies, when we are evaluating AI tools and all this stuff, whether it is just third-party tools or internal, data-related technologies, a certain judgment at multiple levels from executive down to operations is absolute must there. Just about two case studies here. I mean, I think I've spoken enough, but just about two case studies here. One with a property management company, specifically around automating the HVAC technician dispatch system, right? Where we have basically halved the time in having a technician allocated to a particular work order, right? So this particular customer of ours had a lot of ton of data, right? But for a particular technician to be allocated to a particular work order would take a little over about 4 hours or so, right? We have basically used certain technical stacks like Spacey and NLP, obviously, which is OpenAI API framework, GPS data integration, etc. Depending on the location of the technician and depending on where the work order is getting generated from, and started to kind of map that, patternize it, right? And then rank the algorithm in a way that, much like Uber, right? Much like Uber. And then have the technician allocated to a particular work order in like less than 2 hours or so, right? And obviously the customer satisfaction as a result of that, the customer satisfaction also, score metric also has gone up significantly. The second is around the food retail chain quality, right? So as you would know, anybody in the food business or the retail business, specifically around food, most of the stuff is perishable goods, right? So they're all perishable goods. They all have shelf lives, and the shelf lives are like supremely short to a large portion of the food world, right? So how do we ensure that the quality of the food is like fresh? And more importantly, has not been degraded to beyond the point where it can't be sold or consumed anymore, right? So obviously, we've kind of delivered on computer vision models to assess the quality of such food that includes fruit, vegetables, etc. for a retail department, right? Retail store, and basically improved on that inspection process to a point where at any given point in time the consumer would actually get only high rated quality food and that is fresh and so on and so forth, right? So that's what we do. So that's essentially AI for business leaders and executives, right? And the question is, you may ask me, how do you guys do it, right? We at Amzur have our own proprietary transformation methodology, and we call it shift, right? So anytime we engage with the customer, a prospect, or the market, or even consulting, right? A pro bono consulting for about an hour or two, to kind of sit down with people. So we have a very proprietary transformation framework called Shift, where we sit down, assess the situation with the stakeholder, right? Understand what it is, understand the problem statement, construct a hypothesis around it, and then we basically collect data as part of inquiry, right? We collect ton of data. Essentially the component of collecting the data is to inquire whether the hypothesis that we have come up with is in absolute line with the situation or the problem at hand. We have seen many a time, right? Not just at Amzur, but also in my personal previous life, is that sometimes the problem could be something else, but the way it is orchestrated and what they're trying to achieve in terms of the outcome could be totally different. When you actually construct a hypothesis and look at data, the problem is somewhere else as opposed to what is being perceived, right? So they're two different things. Then we actually, prepare a full findings report with regards to what is the problem that we saw, what are the data that we've collected, what is the hypothesis, is it in line, or are there multiple other problems that are associated with it? Who have we contacted? What is the industry knowledge about? So on and so forth. So we present an entire findings report, including the recommendations as to how to go about resolving those challenges, right? And then present that to the prospect, to the customer, to progress forward with the execution, right? So, and based on that proprietary framework, we have an associated model specifically with the consulting model or the consulting framework that you've seen, which is Shift. So we have, as Alex said at the start of the call, we are into cloud, we are into low code, we are into AI, right? We have our digital transformation products, solutions, and services around these three, which is AI, cloud, and low code, right? So we have our ops framework. When I say ops framework, not operational, but operating model framework, right? Where anytime we go with our shift consulting model, when we sit down with the client, right, we basically understand their processes to understand as to how to optimize that for scale, to understand what technologies that are out there or internally within the company or that we can build for that particular company, right, and integrate that within their ecosystem. Three, the way we basically build the AI ecosystem within a particular company is selecting those input materials and components that have intelligence built into that, right? To drive that necessary yield that we talked about, which is all about analytics and then the outcome, and which leads into the whole data-driven decision making, right? So at the end of the day, executives need to make a decision, and for that decision, the support systems need to have that necessary components built and centered around data and intelligence at the same time, right? To be able to give that accuracy, precision, and completeness for decisions to be made for a competitive advantage or a significant outcome to be achieved, right? And obviously, governance, compliance, and change management surrounds all of that transformation program, which is around setting up a steering committee, ensuring that all the work that we are doing is regulatory compliant in nature, and the change management exercise with regards to training, orientation, and all of the stuff that we basically package in the program centered around that particular problem statement of project, and send it to us. So, and we've got a lot of detail for each of these components that you see on the slide here around process optimization, what is that we collect, which processes we do, etc., etc., and their related technologies, automation, analytics, and performance management as well, right? So with that said, I think we are at the next slide. I think we are at the end of the session, Alex. I know it has been a little longer than expected, but yeah, open for Q&A.
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, let's do a quick sound check. How's my sound for my producer?
Yeah,
Hope
absolutely.
that's fixed.
Good.
Fixed good. All right, good. So, first of all, that was awesome. I do have a couple questions, and I'll leave it to the team behind the scenes to text us when it's time to stop because I want to get some of these questions in. And it was awesome. As always, I like how you blend the practical, approach. You have a really practical framework, not only to, you know, jump into AI, but to get quick wins and also to build innovation. And I noticed that in your presentation in a couple places, if someone were going to start, what strategies or innovative strategies would the business deploy to ensure the AI implementation is both impactful and cost effective? And I think you answered that in your slide where you talk about quick wins and strategic, that whole
Yeah,
series of slides. You had like 3 slides there, and you're
yeah,
welcome to jump back there because you got a lot of information on these slides. Very good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, see, the thing is, there are, you're true, right? While I kind of detailed it in the slide there, essentially, in short, the as businesses can actually optimize their cost by adopting, we have everybody's pretty much on the cloud now, or if they are not, they should move to cloud now, right? It's like, if they miss the bus on the cloud now, they probably will lose their competitive advantage very soon, right? So
Mhm.
anybody on the call, on the webinar here, if you're not on the cloud, my strong advice is to take advantage of the cloud services that whether it is Amazon, Azure, or otherwise GCP as well, right? By adopting cloud-based AI services, right, you could basically experiment with AI at scale as well, right? Because you have a very reduced initial investment, scalable solutions, and more importantly, maintaining a very strict ROI, right, evaluations to that particular experimentation or the AI solution that you want to implement, right,
Mhm.
with as little budget, right, and that initial cost that the cloud providers extend, right. I think that could be a good start in terms of ensuring AI implementations are both impactful and cost effective.
Yeah, that's great. So I do another question. Could you put the slides back on? Let's put that last slide with your contact information. Just keep it on there while we talk, um, real quick, because I think it's helpful for people to get a hold of you, right? So we do have a question that's come in from Prasad. Great session, Ghana, I agree. Lucky to learn from your vast experience. My question is to identify the right AI implementation use cases. From your experience, who do you think, this is a good question, who do you think are the key stakeholders in business or technology we should start the discussion with?
That's an excellent question. I think the first dialogue should be with the functional leaders, right?
Hmm.
The business functional leaders, not the CFOs or the finance directors, right? If it is a
Oh,
corporate finance function or a supply chain director, right? I think it is not like the executives, the executives like a CP or chief product officer or a chief data officer or a chief executive officer. They're decision making ranks, and they probably while they have a very broad understanding of what a business function and what they do, they probably may not necessarily be involved or engaged at an operational level. So, the middle management layer, who basically the functional heads of a particular company, right, and the business heads of a particular company, they are the first guys to get engaged with to basically understand the business problem in great detail, right? So that's the first touch point. The second touch
mhm.
point is most of the functional leaders that I have seen personally in my engagement and dialogue with a lot of them, right? And as a company from Amzur, we have seen that while most of the functional leaders have a really great handle on the challenges of the business processes that they execute, or of the market or the product or the solution, right? They
Hmm.
probably don't have the necessary data to substantiate that particular problem, right? So,
Interesting.
the second dialogue that they need to get into with is a chief technology officer or chief data officer if they have one in their company, right? So these are the two primary stakeholders. First, the functional leads. Second, the data leads, right? Whoever is handling the data. And if we basically get in a dialogue with these two, I think there is enough input for us to corroborate the problem statement with the data statement to be able to then go and figure out how to solve it, right? So
That's a great answer. I would immediately said CFO, CO, but you're saying if you're talking about improving the business processes through the use of AI, you got to go to the people that are actually running the business processes.
absolutely.
That's what you're saying. So great answer. Good question. Good question. Another question that just came in is like you've been involved in a lot of these implementations for many years, or I'm going to say over a decade. So, what are some common challenges that you see when people do go into these AI, machine learning, even robotics implementations? What are some of the sort of common challenges that people face that you should say, hey, heads up, be aware of this?
The first challenge is resistance, Alex, right? This is how we do it. I don't know if this new technology is going to actually help us anyway, right? You know, go take a walk. That would be the first dialogue a lot of people tell me, right? And to be very honest and make, I mean, very blunt about it as well, right? Um,
Yeah.
why? Because the first to get over the challenge, any company and organization, and it has served me really well over the last about 10, 15 years, is doing the change management exercise first, or starting with the change
Yes.
management exercise first, would be the first step to get over that challenge, right? Once you get over the challenge of educating, orienting people, right, getting them to understand what the problems are and why we are implementing a certain technology, etc., to kind of have that necessary space, right? I think that'll get through. That's the first one. Second one is the choice of technology or the tools, right, that we see. A lot of people actually go to the market, pick up an off-the-shelf product, right, and then expect it to be integrated within their within their business and the technology ecosystem. And then when it gets implemented, they actually configure that particular technology based on how the existing processes are, as opposed to how the new set of processes should be, right? You know,
That's
and that
interesting.
leads to a lot of hard work in the long run, right? That's the biggest challenge. People, I mean, sorry to use this word, but this is the corporate language, right? People bastardize technologies to a point where they are trying to kind of automate and configure them to meet their existing needs as to how work gets done, as opposed to adopting best practices to get that stuff done. But they're two separate things.
I'm really glad you brought up that change management because I've heard it said from so many times from our internal CIO group, CTO group, that a lot of the processes aren't really, it's in their heads and they're doing a lot of the stuff is happening. So I think you hit the nail on the head. You got to find out what the actual business processes are, and you got to go to the people that, and I assume in part of your process that you help the clients do that, right? That's
Absolutely.
when you do your analysis. Yeah. So another question has come in. So you talk about strategic considerations for embedded AI into the core business processes. Let's go back to, I think you already answered this question in
Yes.
terms of one of your slides. I think it was going back. You had a couple slides which answered it. You answered for integration blueprint for business transformation. If you want to show them that real quick so they can see the answer, because I think you answered this as part of your
Strategic
approach.
confusion. Go up. Go to the earlier slide.
Well, it's in a lot of different slides there. You've answered the
Oh,
question
yeah.
a couple times here. I love those case studies, by the way.
Go back.
Yep.
Go back. This is center metric. These are some of them, but there's
Yeah.
one more.
Yeah.
Just go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
So these are some of the business operations functions and the sectoral sectoral deployments, right? Where we could do AI, like for example, healthcare, manufacturing, right? Uh, there are, as I said earlier, right now there are outward products and solutions and services outward looking into the market where they have customers and all of the stuff, and the company or the customer wants to. I mean, the company wants to still be relevant to the market.
Yeah.
Beat the competition, etc., etc., right? Which is all about the business value. Then you have business operations, which is the internal operations for efficiency, right? The more the efficient the operations are, the bigger the bottom line for you, right? So then you can take the dollar back from the free cash flow out and then reinvest back into pushing the top line, or increasing the top line significantly, right? So
Yeah.
so these are some of the areas. Go to the next slide. So the strategic considerations in
I
regards
like
to
that
how can we
approach, by
do.
the way. I think the CFO will like that approach too.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean that speaks is primarily for the CFOs to basically ensure that.
Yeah.
And we did
Yeah.
we have worked with two clients where we have helped the CFOs to basically get a really good handle on their cash flow forecasting in terms of accuracy, cash flow accuracy over the next about 12 to 18 months period. But that was more dependent on the bottom line and the top line and the workings of the P&L and the balance sheet, right, to be able to give that necessary. And it has been working supremely fine, right? The CFO was pretty amazed at the precision and the accuracy that it has. AI has used in terms of an 18-month forecast, right? And they plan to basically extend that for the next about 5 years, simulating multiple scenarios with regards to new product launches or new revenue streams, etc., and see how that goes. So we are working with a couple of
That's
clients on
amazing.
that as well. Yeah.
So the AI is getting that department to a higher level because it's able to process this data for them.
Absolutely.
That they couldn't
Absolutely.
do it. They couldn't do it with just manually doing pivot tables, which everybody loves pivot tables. But it's
I
like
mean,
pivot tables times 100, times a
very
thousand,
true. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So another quick question here. I think we're starting to run out of time here, but let's just get a couple of these key questions. So, I assume when you go through this process, you help them choose which AI tools through the selection process, which tools and which, because there's a lot of different tools. I assume that some of that could be, is that part of your process, right? Just to
Oh,
help.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So as I said, as I said in my ops framework, right, as part of the
yeah,
shift consulting and ops, the first thing that we do, I mean, we don't generally jump straight into selecting AI tools and all that stuff. As I said earlier, we talk to the functional leaders, we talk to all the stakeholders, and as part of the situation, when we understand and have a good handle on the problem statement, and we have adequate data to corroborate the hypothesis to be able to have that clarity on the problem statement, that's when we go and identify a particular tool or a technology. If the customer is looking for a third party tool, I mean, remember, not all problem statements can be addressed by a third party tool directly. Like, for example, we have a customer where we're building an LLM for them, which is a private in-house LLM, right?
yeah.
So which means that the data is not residing with anybody, right? They have an LLM. We are basically taking an open source and configuring that open source
That makes
to make
sense.
it very within the private network. And on top of that particular LLM, we are building applications that the third party, just much like the third party applications, but very custom made for this particular customer. So there's a in-house LLM configured based on open source, and we have multiple applications sitting on top of it that basically drive that necessary AI execution.
That's really great to hear because, I talk to a lot of our our members and our people in our community, and a lot of them they're nervous, but the horses are already are out of the barn, so to speak. People
Yeah,
are already using these tools and they're worried about their data.
yeah,
They're worried about
yeah,
their data creeping into the ecosystem, and they should be, especially people who have compliance issues, like you deal with healthcare clients, a lot of the other
yeah,
clients. So I think you've got a good framework for helping these clients, protect that. The fact that you're already helping people with their own large language models and other tools, I think is awesome.
yeah.
Well,
Uh,
go ahead.
And from a data point, actually, you bring up a very good point around data, right? The
Yeah.
thing is, most of the companies or the business executives that we speak to are also very extremely cautious, right? Because their questions centered around data. What happens to my data? Is it secure enough?
Yeah.
All of this stuff. So, I mean, there are two things here. One, Amzur is a very data compliant company. By that, what I mean is that Amzur is a GDPR certified. It is a HIPAA
Good.
certified, it is a SOC 2 certified, and it is ISMS certified as well, right? A. B, we also strongly advise the customers that we work with to be able to secure a certain certification. I'll tell you why, because we currently, as part of my, again, in my previous life, I was working with a European customer, and they
Yep.
were basically working with certain data on healthcare, right? But they were not so they have to be like a Data Privacy Act, there's something called a DPA in Europe and GDPR, but they were not certified with it, right? But people were playing with data without realizing the compliance related issues that they would run into, right? So my
Yeah.
strong advice to a lot of customers that we work with is first get certified if you are basically handling very sensitive data, right? At least that will basically drive the very essence as to why data needs to be secure and how people should be handling the data is very, very pertinent even before you jump into a data engineering exercise or a data re-engineering exercise, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Well, you brought up governance, last question, and then we'll go to the last slide. But you brought up, let's go ahead and put that on that last slide because we're going to close here in a second. But you did bring up an issue of governance earlier and how important that is. And I think that's really key because I think you've got to have a governance policy, right? Um, you've got to have a governance policy, and people are, I'm forgetting the phrase that you used. I'm looking for your slide here. Where's that one slide you talked about? Yeah, ethical AI and governance. Yeah, you
Ethical
actually
AI
said governance.
governance, yeah.
Yeah, you brought that up, and I do hear the concern, and I do think it do. I think some people are getting stuck there where they're not sure how to handle it. So I would urge anybody who's in that situation now to talk to Ghana and his team to actually help you get unstuck because you do have to have a framework and a policy for that for your employees. And I think people are just they're not really sure what to do. I hear that a lot. I think there's a big group of
Yeah,
people that are not really sure what to do. So you don't have to be on the bleeding edge here. And I think, Ghana, you and your team have mapped out a framework. We can start with some quick wins. You're not taking a lot of risk, right? But then
yeah,
if you wanna invest more and you want to take more, it's risk from a financial perspective, and actually start to move towards those business processes and the top line revenue, which is what you're talking about. You have a brilliant process to help them do that. You really do. And I've seen a lot of presentations, so this is really good, Ghana. All right, with that, let's
lovely.
get to that last screen. And is there anything else that you want to add? Otherwise, I want to ask you, go ahead and reach out. If somebody wants these slides, we didn't ask this ahead of time. Could you have a version that you can get them if
Well,
they ask for the
absolutely.
slides?
So,
Yeah.
basically, I'm told by our producer that we'll shoot out this presentation
Oh, you will?
in a couple
Okay,
of
great.
days to all the attendees on the call. Um, and then along with the presentation, we'll also shoot out so we have a questionnaire that probably will help a lot of the attendees on the call, which is an AI readiness survey, right? It basically just tells them, I mean, they don't need to send it back to me, but if they do, I can basically, I mean, Amzur can help them understand their maturity, right? But even without us in picture, we'll send out an AI readiness survey. It'll basically tell them if they answer it, it'll tell them as to how mature they are and whether they can adopt AI now or how deep their journey is already, right? So it'll kind of give them an understanding on the AI plus data maturity model, right? That survey that we can send it out along with the presentation, right? And we also plan to basically have in the next about 4 to 6 weeks a deeper understanding with regards to the algorithms, the engineering of AI, right? For attendees like architects and engineers and all that stuff in about 4 to 6 weeks. So this webinar was more around business. but we plan to basically have one centered around engineering as well.
That's great. Well, this has been an awesome webinar. Again, I urge everybody, great, first of all, Ghana, great job. And everybody, thanks for attending. I urge you, if you haven't connected with Ghana yet in the last hour, you should. He's great. He's open to it. And you'll get the presentation. And if you're watching this on LinkedIn Live a week from now or whatever, or you see a video of this, go ahead and reach out to Ghana. I'm sure they'll be helpful to you. And if you get that survey that Ghana is now talking about, take a few minutes to fill it out, because I can tell you, I can attest these are good people and they know what they're talking about and they can help you. Any last thing you want to add, Ghana?
Good, Alex. Thanks a ton for hosting this. Really appreciate it, and for everybody else on the call, my sincere suggestion: get your hands dirty with AI right now. It is going to be the disruptor right now. You can't ignore it. Better well embrace it, right? And start today, now, right? Don't push it.
I think that is wise advice. Bill Gates just calls this the age of AI. This is the big disruptor. And I think
Absolutely.
that's a great piece of closing advice, which is start using it. Just get familiar with it and start using it.
Correct.
Reach out to these folks for some help. All right, Ghana, thank you for an awesome presentation. Participants, thank you. I always like to close anything I'm involved with. It's an honor to serve you. It's an honor to be with you all from Amzur, the team from Amzur, great team behind the scenes. Everybody worked really hard to put this webinar together for everybody and all the attendees. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. See you.
Bye.